Probably, I don't know, go to the trash can.
Why'd you point at Andrew?
Yeah. I'll just go to like Subway or something, just tell them to be so hungry.
Well, we're going to cover today, Chapter 2, Federal Income Tax. Again, you write down what you want to write down.
I love this class.
But Brianna knows that, wow, Mr. Eversole happened to be nice last time, and we got to use our notes on the test, and it was helpful. You never know, maybe it'll be helpful again if Michael keeps talking about living in a fridge box, and it's not his fault that he's had 10 jobs.
I'm just joking, dude. I gotta live in a fridge box. I'm 17. I don't care what they think about me.
The bad thing is 17, that's about the time you ought to start caring.
I know. I got like 9 months, so.
No. The 18 doesn't matter. See, and I figured that out when I was here. Because I had that same thought that you have. And I thought, I don't care about all this. And then all of a sudden, I get ready to go off to college, and they're looking at my senior transcript, and they're going, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you didn't really work real hard this past year, did you? I thought, crap.
Story of my life.
And then I have my wife 20 years later complaining at me each month because we're still paying off student loans.
Well, tell your wife to stop complaining and
You're still
get a new husband.
Why is that?
No, I'm just kidding. Don't say that. That's a bad thing.
I didn't do stuff here when I was here, so I didn't get any kind of scholarships or anything. So
Like, we needed stuff here,
You went to school here?
I didn't work well here.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
get good grades here, so I didn't get any kind of scholarship.
And then they hired you back after you
Didn't get any kind of scholarships, nothing like that. So I had to pay for all my schooling. And to pay for all that, I didn't have the money in my pocket to pay them.
Nobody does unless you're
Right.
rich. Unless you.
So I didn't have all that money right there in my pocket, so I had to take out loans. And when you take out a student loan, you start paying them back after you get out of school.
Oh, you
Don't
get
they give you like a year or something?
Like once you get.
No.
Some of them you do. What?
Don't they give you like a year or something? So you gotta start paying like
A grace period?
Yeah.
Depends. It depends on the loan. Some of them are 6 months, some of them are a year, some of them are, hey, you're no longer in school, you start paying this month.
That makes me nervous because I have no money saved up for college right now.
Join the club.
So make sure you look at that. Make sure you look at that closely. When you go to the bursar or whatever in college and they say, oh yeah, we can get you some funds, and they give you an application for some kind of loan, make sure you know, hey, how is this paid back? What's the interest rates? When do you expect payment? Because a lot of them now are a lot different than they were back then. And now it might be 2 months. They might say, yeah, we'll give you this loan, we'll loan it out to you. And then you got to start paying while you're in school, so make sure you know that stuff up front.
I need to apply for grants and scholarships and all that
Just
stuff.
go online. That's what I did. I just got my phone get it.
All right, federal income tax. What we're going to cover, determine the amount withheld for federal income tax. There's a couple different ways to figure out federal income tax. Different companies do it different ways. Couple of things that I know with my family. Number one, the school income tax. It drives me nuts because school income tax, what you guys would pay here at Trail for school income tax, and it's different for each school, but it's a set percentage. So to me, that should be something easy to figure. You take, 0.5% times how much money I'm going to make. Well, every year when we do the school income tax, we end up paying in more money at the end of the year.
Well, then you gotta like file that on your taxes or whatever.
And every year I'm either downstairs talking to them saying, how come I owe them $300 here at the end of the year for school income tax? What is the problem with, I make this amount of money, the tax for Valley View schools, the district I live in, is 1.5. So you change that to a decimal, 0.015, multiply that times this number, That's how much I should pay in at the end of the year. Divide that by 26. That tells you how much I should pay each pay. It should be easy. It should be a pretty set number that you're putting on there. But every year somehow it ends up I'm short paying them, and I gotta come up with $300 out of the blue to pay them right there. And schools don't mess around; they want it right then. They want you to pay it now. It's not like the federal government will. They'll say, "All right, we'll let you do a payment plan or something like that if you're behind." Schools aren't that way. They want their money now. Okay? It was the same, and I'm not saying anything bad about the school here because it was the same way at every job I've ever had. For some reason, they have trouble figuring that out. And now that I see some of this, I understand why. Because when you're doing federal income tax, there's two different ways that a job might figure out how much federal income tax to take out of your check. All right? They might use one way, they might use the other way. Depends on which one they think is easier for their company. Okay? And both those methods, you're going to get fairly close to what you should pay in. Now, most of you probably know because your parents have to file their federal income tax, and a lot of parents around here, I know that's the way I am, and that's the way my mom, we were always happy to file our income tax when I lived at home because we always got money back. Well, that's not everybody, and I'm hoping that you guys get out and you get some big high-paying job, and then at the end of the year, you're not getting money back. You might have to pay money in. I'm not wishing bad things on you as far as paying money in, but if you pay money in, that means that you were probably doing pretty well over the year, all right? And it always kills me when all these people in this area are going, why don't you make those businesses pay more taxes so that I don't have to? If you look at stuff, and we'll probably look at some of it through here at some point, when you look at this stuff, businesses pay
A lot.
most of the income tax.
Yeah, it's
Like people that are like millionaires, like I was reading like how people win like the lottery. Like, did you know the lady that just won like it was like it was a crap ton of
Right.
money, and they took like over half of it.
Right.
I mean, she still got like $300 million, but still they took a big chunk of that money.
Most of it.
Was,
And that's the thing with, if you listen to these politicians and stuff, they talk about, oh, we're gonna cut taxes for the middle class and the lower class. Hey, that's great, but guess what? The middle class and lower class don't pay most of the taxes. That does nothing. So when you, let's say you just told all middle class and lower class, for this year, they have to pay no taxes. That wouldn't affect our federal government this much. Because
There's all those millionaires.
about 3% of all the people in our country pay like 95% of all the taxes, all the money that goes to run our government. Those top 3% pay 95% of all the taxes. So they're the ones that support our government. Not me, not your moms, not your dads, unless for some reason you're a multi-billionaire and
Why are you
just
going
hiding
to
out
school?
here at Trail, which I don't, I don't buy, because I would be sucking up to you if that was the case. If I ever found out that this Lutz's folks were
we are.
really, really wealthy, I would be calling her house every night saying, she's such a lovely young lady in class. Just sucking up all
They
the
just
time.
think you're weird.
Well, that might be. They could pay me off and I quit being weird.
I guess that would work.
But, so, when we figure out this federal income tax, two different ways that we're gonna do it, alright? And a lot of this won't apply to some of you, because if you look down there, it says withholding allowance, and we're gonna talk about withholding allowances. How many allowances do each one of you have?
None.
None right now, because you're not allowed to claim an allowance because your folks claim your property still, alright? So, when you get out of here though, now all of a sudden you're gonna have one, that's you, like me, I have 5.
Do they start claiming you when you turn 18 or when you graduate?
They don't have to stop claiming you all the way through that. So that's something that you need to discuss with your parents. I had to discuss it with my oldest son. How are you going to do this? Because if he's still living at my house and stuff, I want to claim him. So, and we'll talk about that when we talk about like W-2s and stuff. And I'll say a little about it here in a minute.
I know somebody that gets their full paycheck without taxes, but they have to put money back for taxes after the new year.
Say again. What?
I know somebody that gets like their full paycheck, but they have to like put their own taxes back for at the end of the year. I would like that. I just couldn't at all.
We used this once before, but we're going to look at that here in a second. On these, I'm going to pass these around. I don't remember how many pages there are here. There's 5 pages to this. So take the top 5. Take the top 5 and pass on to the next person take the top 5. Yeah, so hold up that front page so everybody can see it. Does everybody see that front page? So you're going to take down to the next one of those in the stack and then pass it on.
And Mr. Ebersol?
Yep.
You got a Band-Aid by chance?
Yeah,
Alright.
I want you to take some stuff.
Go put it over your nose.
Oh yeah, totally.
Don't even get it. Don't even
I'll leave it on.
Take it straight on the front.
I use the bathroom.
Don't even use
Hurry while there's people in the hallway for the, so I don't feel like writing it fast.
You see that? Seen it like on the internet. Some kid, I forget what town it was. He tried to shoot up some school. I mean, he ended up not like he killed one kid, but he like went in there and his gun jammed and all kinds of stuff. It was messed up.
Pay attention to that stuff. That's part of the reason. Go watch the news.
I think the news is very.
If they, when that janitor tackled that kid that you're talking about, if they would have just kept it hush hush and took him out in the field and sliced his arms and let him bleed a little bit and lay out there and just die in agony. We don't want to talk about all the people overdosing and stuff like that either, because that'd get me in even more trouble.
As you get the report,
Yeah.
You gotta come take about this.
On this, federal income tax, FIT, money withheld by an employer. Set those papers off to the side for a second. We're going to talk about them here in a minute. That's why we had a break there. While I was doing nothing, I wanted to get that passed out, so I remembered to do it. Federal income tax, FIT, money withheld by an employer from an employee's paycheck to pay federal government taxes. So you're paying for the federal government.
So like in a way, we have to pay like taxes and stuff for our work. So like they use the taxes we pay for them to pay for the government. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, that's what the money goes towards.
Yeah. It is.
So the money goes to pay for you to be able to live in this
But
country.
then at the same time, you have to pay the government taxes too, right?
No, your federal taxes are your government
Oh,
taxes.
okay. Never mind.
For the federal government.
Yeah.
Then you pay state taxes. You got state taxes to pay for your state government. And then you got school taxes to pay for your public schools. You wanted to punch holes in those papers that you just took so that you can stick them in something to hold on to them. I'll pass that around. We'll probably have several of these throughout the year. You'll notice on some of those pages, it was a bunch of charts. We'll probably have a whole bunch of these charts because you just look up stuff on the chart. Now the bad thing with federal income tax, and this is a big discussion here lately, we're paying all this federal income tax, and I shouldn't say that. Some people are paying all this federal income tax. I mean, I pay what I think is a lot.
Do you want this whole punch?
Nah, that's all right. I pay what I think is a lot, but in the big scheme of things, is the amount I pay in really mean anything? Not really. It's not much, right, compared to everything. But all this money that is going to the federal government, is it being spent wisely?
No.
And that's probably most people's thought is, no, they're not spending it like Mr. Ebersole has to spend his money and, you know, they're doing stupid stuff with it. Worried about having a big fancy dinner with the president and these other people to talk about, hey Dakota, to talk about the wall and all that stuff.
That's what he tweeted
But,
yesterday.
but do we need a big dinner for them to talk about it? No. So they probably, you know, had a big fancy meal and,
50,000 on the dinner.
yeah. And we're,
The water they drink.
poor Michael's trying to spend $4 on a meal at Taco Bell or somewhere.
I just go to McDonald's. I get 2 McChickens and a large Coke for like $3.21.
You know he does that a lot because he's got that down to the science. He already knows. He knows the exact dollar amount and everything.
You go to McDonald's, you spend about double.
What? If you get, I thought you get a large Coke. It's like $1.21, but if you get the chicken, it's $1.07.
You have that switched around.
Yeah, this is the other way.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Withholding allowances. Well, withholding allowance is the number of people an employee supports. So how many people you actually support. Again, you have to make that decision right now, and I talk it over with everybody in my family. When my wife has a job, she's had several, when she's actually working, we take hers and what she writes down. What she writes down is 0 on hers. So my wife claims, my wife claims 0 withholding allowances.
You do that?
Yeah, and that's probably what you guys do when you fill out your W-2s.
I put 1.
You put 1. So if you put 1, then what happens there is at the end of the year when you file your taxes and your family files their taxes, you both can't claim you. So something's got to give there. All right? So if at the end of the year your mom says, no, we're claiming you, then what's going to happen is they claim that extra one. Now you got to change yours to 0, which changes how much taxes should have been withheld on your money, which is probably going to make it higher, should have been withheld, and that means you didn't pay in enough, so you're going to have to pay in a little more. Now for a lot of you guys, it works out all right because if you make less than a certain amount,
Yeah, we don't
they don't
pay
even
it.
worry about it. Okay?
What's that amount?
I'm hoping it's gonna tell on these charts here in a minute.
When do you claim taxes?
You start, they gotta be filled out by April
18.
So,
14.
I turned 18 in February, which I didn't want my dad to claim me. Could he still claim me since, like, does it just depend whenever he does it?
See, that's an argument you and him would
That's
have to
weird.
do. That's an argument you guys have to have. See, that's like with me and my wife, I tell her on her W-2s when she, when you go in and get a new job, you gotta fill out that little piece of paper. You gotta write down
0 1.
how many dependents do you have, how many, and total it all up and stuff, and turn that into your employer. And I tell her every time she does it, you put 0 on that line. Because I'm probably gonna make more money over the year than her, so I need to claim her
So you can get more back.
so I can get more back, where we're gonna be, if she claims 0 or 1, it's not gonna make as much of a difference as if I claim 4 or 5. So that's something you just gotta work out, different, it's different for everybody. So, and that, how many allowances, that's gonna tell your employer how much money to hold out each check. Now, again, you notice everybody has to file income tax, and some of these, some of the politicians want to go to a flat tax. And what that means is that I would pay 10% no matter what. So there wouldn't be filing at the end of the year. I pay in 10% and it's over with. No getting money back, no paying money in. You pay in one time, or, cut it off right there and it's done with. And that would make more sense than, giving them money, getting it back, somebody else giving them money and paying more in, make it a flat tax. But the federal government doesn't like to do that. And I think part of the reason, right, well, besides being easy, part of the reason is if we pay a flat tax, for whatever reason, they might not get as much money.
Because then they wouldn't have the people that would have to pay extra.
All right, this is one of the handouts that I gave you. This is one of the ways to figure out federal tax, how much federal tax you're going to pay. This is called the percentage method. Oh, there's another slide here. Got screwed up. First, let's look at the charts. Before we look at that one, let's look at the charts. I think I forgot to put this on there. If you look at these charts, out here at the left, they give you a range. So let's say you work one day this week and you make $32. Just making up something. All right? We look at what range that falls in. So that falls in that 0 to 55 range. And then we look over here and you look at your allowances. So if we look over here and you have 0 allowances, then you have $50 worth of taxable income out of that, however much you had made there. We said $32, so you could have been taxed on up to 50 of it. All right? That's your taxable income. That's how much the amount of income taxes to be withheld is. That's what it is right there. And that's not $50. That's $0 in it. Need to get me some glasses. $0. So you wouldn't get charged any federal income tax. Let's make up a different one. Give me a number. 400. Go down through there and find where 400 would fall out on this chart. Somewhere about there, 400 to 410, right? We're gonna say you have 0, and then we'll look at 1 too, because Michael said he claims 1. If you have 0 dependents, if you claim 0 on the paperwork you filled out, how much taxes is that saying you have to pay in?
46.
$46. So out of the 400, you pay in $46. All right? If you claim 1 dependent, like Michael said, look over one more column. How much you gonna pay in then? 36. That's how you figure that out. That's one way, is using these charts. All right? The second way to figure out how much tax to take out of your check is using this method. Instead of looking down through those charts, and I think this is probably what most employers do, like the school here, they probably use this method because it's something that they can program into the computer, and the computer just does the little formulas here. All right? Your allowance amount is how many you claim. All right? Maybe you claim 1, then you got 1 times, and this number right here, that's 6346. That's a standard number. That stays there all the time in this formula. All right? So they're giving you $63.46 for every 1 you claim. So if I claim 5, I would have 5 times that. So it'd be like $315. So if I only made $315 this week, they wouldn't charge me any tax. Okay? You look down here then, or I'm sorry, your taxable wage is your gross pay minus your allowable amount. So whatever your allowable amount is, or your allowance amount is, you subtract that from how much you actually made, and that's going to be how much of your wages is actually taxable. So the government's not taxing you on everything. They're taking off part right off the top saying, we're not going to tax you on this part because you need that to live on. Then the third step. How much is are they actually going to withhold? Use the taxable wage and the table below to compute it. If you're $51 to $195 over your allowance amounts, then you pay $0 plus 10% of whatever you went over. And we'll do one of these problems because it sounds a little confusing, right, Brianna? Sound confusing. If you're $195 to $645 over, then you do $14.40 plus 15% of whatever you're over. So this is almost like doing the commissions. When we were doing the commissions and you had a minimum plus the commission rate and you had to add them together at the end, that's the same thing here. Then if you're in between $645 and $1,482 over, then it's $81.90, so you automatically pay that plus 25% of whatever you're over. Notice it keeps getting a little higher, a little higher. So those people who are way over going to be paying like 40%. That's where those real rich people come in that we said that top 3% pay a whole lot of the taxes because they pay like 40% on everything. And that would not be good if every time I got my check, they'd taken 40% or 45% out of it already. On the charts, we just went over the charts. Those charts are in the back of the book. It's an orange section. At some point, I'm probably not going to run them off. I'm going to say flip to that orange section in the back of the book. Not this chart, but those other charts. We'll do a couple examples here. Hopefully this will help. Carla is an actuary. Anybody know what an actuary is?
Tax fraud, right?
Huh?
Doesn't they like do like tax fraud stuff?
They're like an accountant kind of setup, I think. Her gross pay for the week is $425.88. She is married and claims 2 allowances, her and her husband. Find her federal income tax withheld from her check. Use the charts in the back of the book. So we're going to use those charts. Using the charts. She makes this amount. We look on the chart. Can anybody find 425? We were probably just pretty close to that, weren't we?
Others,
What's it between? What 2 numbers?
420,
420 to 430. So if you're looking at that, now when we go over here in the columns, she doesn't claim 0 allowances, right? She doesn't claim 1, she claims 2. So we want to look at the number right there under 2. What is that?
It'd be 29.
Say it again.
29.
29. Notice we were talking about Michael a little while ago, and he only made like $400, and he paid like $36 in taxes, right? This woman makes more than him, but what's she doing?
Claiming another one.
She's claiming more people, so she pays less in taxes. So what's her tax going to be? $29. That's her federal income tax. Now, is that all the taxes that's going to be taken out of her check?
No.
No.
There's a bunch.
You got federal, you got state, you got Medicare, you got Social Security, all kinds of different stuff that's taken out. School tax.
State.
Said that. So if you're using the charts, that's all you have to do. All you're doing, looking on the chart, finding where you fall at in that range. That's all you have to do. Let's get out that other paper that I gave you. I don't have a copy of it. The actual check stuff right there, you got it. Yep. Look on there, on that check stuff. What's it say the pay was for that person?
1,271. Is that you talking about the net pay?
Which one is it? The net gross what? It's the actual adjusted gross. What adjusted gross means is there's things taken off this person's check before they pay their taxes. Like the government now with the prices of healthcare and everything being so high, they're allowing you to take the healthcare out before you pay taxes instead of after, so you got a little bit more money. So what's the adjusted gross on that one?
$1,816.94.
$1,816.94. On your charts, I'm going to tell you, let's say this person claims 5 dependents. Can you find that on these charts? Oh, the first thing we need to look at is what's right at the top of the chart. I forgot to mention that. What's it say? Single. This person's married. So we probably did that last one wrong. Because we didn't look at the married chart. We'll do it again here in a second. So if this person's married, let's do this one first. If this person's married, can we find that 1,800 and whatever on there? Doesn't even go up how high, does it? Does it say anything on this stub about like a pay period or something? What do you think might be wrong here? Think they're just making too much money and it's not on there? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. This is a bi-weekly check. So instead of 1 week, this is 4. So what should we do to this number? Divide that by 2. Somebody help me out. What's that divided by 2?
$908.
And help him out, Brandon. He's got calculators. He's gonna mess it up.
Oh, you're it's 908.467.
What did I say? You said that, but you said 40 something.
find that number on the chart.
No, I didn't mean.
Find that number on the chart. We're going out to 5. Look on the married chart, not the single chart. It's 2 pages for single, 2 pages for married.
It only goes up to 7.
No, look on the next page.
What? Oh, okay.
That's still single.
No, that's
Fourth
not
page.
under name.
It would be,
That's a not under name, and that's not a lot.
900, 910.
Yeah.
900 to 910.
If she was paying for 2 people,
5.
6 or 7.
5, then it would be $49.
$49.
Yeah.
So $49. Now let's look on back on the pay stub and find the federal income tax on that pay stub. Yep, federal tax. What's it say? How much did that person actually pay in? $103. Should they have paid in that much according to these charts? No, they should only paid in about $50. They paid in $100. So that person is probably going to have what happened at the end of the year? They're going to get a whole bunch of money back because they've been paying a whole lot more. Oh no, hold on, I take that back. What did we forget to do? Dang, I keep forgetting. What did we forget to do here? That's how much they paid per week, right?
Oh, yeah, but
We gotta do 2, so what do we gotta do this number?
Times it by 2.
Times it by 2. Somebody help me out, what's 49 times 2? 98. Still, we should have paid in 98. Said the person paid in like 103, isn't that what it said, 103? So they actually paid about $5 too much in. So they're probably still gonna get money back at the end of the year. Alright? But that's pretty close to what it is on there. Let's go back to this person, because they said she was married. Let's see if it made a difference. Look at the married charts between 420 and 430. We said $29. I bet that was wrong.
That's like
For like 2 people,
Yep.
$21.
$21. So they actually paid quite a bit less than what Michael would have paid for that same $400, right? Almost half. So each time you get another allowance, what happens to the amount that you're going to pay in? It's going down because they're leaving you with more money to take care of you and your family.
That's nice.
It was your money to begin with.
Right.
If we're doing it the other way, Lance's gross pay for this week is $393.23. He is a carpenter's apprentice, is single and claims 2 allowances. His employer, and we'll say his 2 allowances, we'll say he's married. It doesn't matter in this case.
No, it's his dog.
No, you can't claim his dog.
so he's single.
So we all know where Kayla's going to end up, in jail. Because she's going to be frauding the federal government, and they don't take too kindly to people claiming their dogs.
But he's single.
Oh, it does say single, doesn't it? So he must have a son or a daughter or something that he claims also. His employer uses a percentage method.
Goldfish.
Yeah, you can't claim the goldfish either.
What if it's like a big?
Like an elephant.
Yeah, that matters.
Like a cow.
What? Giraffe.
Right, so every farmer.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Just claim a
Mi-
cow.
Mr. Swihart's got a bunch of pigs,
He claims every
and he
single
claims
thing.
each one.
I
Yeah,
would.
this is Ben. That's Tom.
Yeah,
That's
family of
Sally the
five.
pig over there. When the guy comes out and says, "Hey, last year you had 2
5.
dependents. This year you got 32.
32.
How'd that happen in a year?" And he goes outside and he shows them. Well, that's Tom the pig there. That's Sally the pig. They're not even gonna ask questions. They're just gonna have him put his hands behind his back like this. And
Then you could just tell them that you had
You're
brain
gonna work
problems
for
and
it.
they'd end up paying you.
Yeah, you have like a
for-
mental disorder.
Yeah.
On this is probably the hardest one, so watch this because you got to do these steps. Your allowance amount. What you're going to do to find your allowance amount. You got to do these 3 steps to get this, otherwise it's not going to work out. So you got to do 3 steps. You're going to take this number, 2, that's the number of allowances, times, and that 6346 is always a set number. 6346. It might change from year to year, but that's the one that we're going to use because that's what goes with our book. Somebody help me out. What's 2 times 6346? We'll sit here and waste all this time. Nobody gets a calculator out. Helps me.
2 times $126 and
$126.
92 cents.
Yep.
He's just doubling it all. That's not hard. You notice on the last one he couldn't do it so well because it came out to be an odd number instead of an even number, so he got stuck at the end. That's why I wanted to get his calculator out. So once we have that, that's your allowance amount, $126.92. Your taxable wage, how much you're actually going to get taxed on. Right? They're not going to tax you on everything. And what we're going to do is you're going to take your gross pay and you're going to subtract that off. Well, they told us his gross pay was $393.23. Watch on this one. Minus $126.92.
200.
He's got his calculator sitting there now. He just punched it in.
I was waiting.
What'd you come up with?
266.31.
$266.31. That number is how much they're actually taxing you on of your wages. Right? So they're not going to tax you on that first $127 or so. They're not going to start taxing you till you get up past that. That's what this chart, how we do it. So we do that, find how the allowance amount, how much you're allowed without being taxed. Then we find your taxable wages. Then once we know that, then we got to use this chart down here. Where do we fall at on the chart? First row, second row, or third row? That 266, where does that fall at?
No, second.
Second row. So on that second row right there, we know that we're going to get taxed $14.40
Plus 15%.
plus 15% of everything that we're over 195. All right? So 15% of everything we're over 195 from this. So what do we do with the 195?
Take 15% times
Before that, you got to do something else.
I'll subtract it.
You got to subtract that. So subtract 195 from that. What's 266.31 minus 195? Use your cat. It's laying there to use it. 71.31.
I wasn't sure.
So we know we're getting taxed $14.40 plus 15% of that overage right there. That's the overage. How much over we were. So 15%. What do we got to do that 15%?
Times it by 71.31. What?
All right. What do you do to it first? 15%. What do you got to do to it?
And finish with this one.
So what is it? 0.15 times it by 71. You were right on that part, Michael. It's just not the answer I wanted for that. What I was asking. Somebody help me out. What's 0.15 times 71.31? Michael can't do that in his head.
That's why I'm using my calculator.
No. What is it?
10.6
69?
Yeah, 65. You run it off.
60.
69.65.
All right. So that's close enough.
I didn't know that was right.
1440. What do we do with those two?
Add them.
Add them together. Somebody add those together for me.
I already know it.
What is it?
It is $25.09.
What's $25.09?
How much he has to pay,
For what?
if he's over the 195.
For what?
Federal income tax.
Federal income tax. So on his check, when he gets it, it's gonna say his gross pay is that, and then right below that, like on here, right below that, it's gonna say federal income tax, and it'll give what that federal income tax amount is. And it should be $25.09. Let's make up one here. Give me a number, because I know this one's hard and I want to make sure you understand it. Give me a number, bring home pay, your gross pay. 1,000 what?
687.
Now is that for a week?
I wish.
Probably want to be a little lower because we're
$600.
getting up in the stratosphere there, right? $600?
Yeah.
Alright. Let's say you make $600 in a week. How many allowances do you have? How many people are you claiming? 3? We'll say 3. So you got 3 allowances. Married or single? Married?
Yes, I have to.
Does it really matter on this method if you're married or single? No. Now, at the end of the year, when it comes down, that's going to make something different when you do your tax returns, if you're married or single. But for the company to do it, it doesn't matter. So again, follow along. I know you get bored with me, but to do this, these are going to be the hard ones. It's going to be about like that problem 18 that you asked me to do off the thing. First thing you're going to do, allowance amount. How many allowances did we have?
3.
And we times that by the 6346. Somebody help me out. What's 6346 times 3? That's that standard number.
Oh.
It's there every single time. 199, 90, 38. Now what that allowance amount, again, what it's saying, if you only made $190, how much tax are they going to take out? None. They're allowing you that much. That's your money right off the top. Then we take that to find our taxable, how much they're actually going to tax us on. We take that, subtract it from our gross. So we take $600 minus 190.38. What's that give us?
400.
What?
And
Somebody do it on their calculator. Thank you, Brianna.
$410. 62.
409.
Fuck, you got calculator right in front of you.
Well, I don't care, Andrew.
He can't borrow in his head either, and I knew that. That's why I wanted somebody to do it, because I knew that he would give us $1 off, because he can't borrow in his head. That makes it hard.
Well, I guess I ripped you off somewhere. I'll go get a candy bar or something.
He actually knew that he was getting ripped off the dollar, not me. because he-
Alright, then I ain't worried about it.
This is how much you're taxed on. That's how much the government's actually going to tax you on. That $409.62. Once we know that, then we jump down here to the table. Where do we fall at? First, second, or third blank there? First, second, or third row?
Second.
Second again. So we know we're going to pay in $14.40 for sure, plus 15% of what we're over. All right? Now this isn't what we're over. We got to subtract off the 195 from that. Subtract that for me. What's 409.62 minus 195? 214.62.
I was gonna say it, but I didn't know you could criticize how $1 is good again.
Would you have had to borrow there? Would you have had to borrow there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you have been off $1? Were you thinking 215 in your head?
No, I didn't even do it, to be honest.
What do we got to take that number times?
15.
So So what I write? Did I just write 15?
0.015.
0.15 there, right? Somebody multiply those two together, what's that give us? 32 point what? 193. Now what's gonna happen? 193, guess what your business is gonna do? They're gonna round it up to 20 cents. So they're gonna take that extra penny to pay the government just to make sure you're paying in enough taxes. Now, is that all of it? What else do we have to do? Add those two together. What's 1440 plus 3230? There, Michael, you can do that one in your head.
46, 60. 70. That's 40 and 20.
60 in it.
I was like,
So how much federal tax are we gonna pay on that $600? 46.60. That's using this method. If we use the other method, just to show you that these are different, I'm gonna look it up here real quick. Said that you were married, 3 allowances, so I'm gonna look at the married chart. We made $600. $600, that'd be and we got 3 allowances. On this chart it says $25. So you gotta be careful on some of these. Notice that we pay a lot more this way. Yeah, and it depends on what your company does, which of these two methods they use. A lot of difference there. When you change jobs, I know a lot of families, especially in this area, my mom and dad always did it. They counted on getting like $4,000 or $5,000 back at the end of the year on their income tax. So they would, say, oh, we need a new refrigerator. So December or something, they'd go out and buy that new refrigerator and say, yeah, we'll pay it off when our income tax comes in. Well, sometimes you got people like me who I've had many different jobs. Some of them take it out this way, some of them take it out this way. So when my wife, about 6 or 7 years ago, when I was working a second job all the time also, full time, and then I quit, and she took in our income tax 1 year, and we got back this amount, and we've been getting that back for like 4 or 5 years because I'd worked at that same 2 jobs for those years. Well, then I quit that job and start just working this job. Well, she's still thinking we're going to get back about the same amount. It'll be a little less because he's not making that extra $10,000 or $12,000 a year from that other job, but we're still going to get back probably about this amount because that other company was taking it out something like this where they were taking out a whole bunch more. So we got a whole bunch more back from them than like the school probably does, where they use those things, those charts there, and take it out that way. So you got to be careful and stuff like that when you change jobs. That's your assignment, page 129, 1 through 10, 13 through 20.